my country got the historians hard at work. Well, I am one who want to believe that the whole situation is a big, big joke. Now I back in Palm and my sister back in labor, but that can't stop me from loving one another. Now I vote quarrel and she vote with it door. But to box me sister will have to box me for sure. So when I might set out to destroy labor, which one of them go touch me sister is sure. When labor decide to shoot down Pam, you think me sister go shoot I man? No, it's sure. It is time that we understand that there's a time for labor and a time for Pam. The country is sinking, it needs rebuilding. We have to start uniting and stop fighting. Oh, it's joke we making.
Say it aloud, say it aloud.
It seems to me we are carelessly destroying all the nation. At the rate we are going, we are rapidly approaching the point of inevitable self-destruction. I would like to rest me hand on that crazy louse who's stupid enough to burn down the courthouse. Such a tragical loss is affecting everybody. Yes, gone is the evidence of part of our history. Yet some people say it is their desire to see the whole of my country on fire. It's for when trouble start, it ain't there, it doesn't. If they take that fire, got a friend, no, it's our selfishness, our lust, and our greed make we blind to what we have. We don't know what we need. We must gather our forces and pool our resources. Replace egoism with patriotism, but it's joke we making.
Say it aloud, say it aloud.
They say we are docile people and how we like plenty fun. Yet I was surprised that day on Church Street to see riot police with machine gun. Whoa. Whoa. The opposition tried to remove the base, to throw the House of Assembly out of place. I want all you politicians listen to me. This divide and rule policy is no good for me. Tell them when they're preaching for secession, some family ties are much too strong, so it's it's like saying to Star Black, my basement, go back to the east and take your house and land. No, it's same kids and neighbors should live nice. We must live as one, not like must end fragmentation, forget segregation, promote cooperation between these islands. Oh, it's joke we making.
To the Lord, to the Lord.
Colonialism done dead and gone, yet some people playing dance. No matter what party control this country, it is time we achieve our independence. Our present system is telling us we can't prosper, so we have to prepare ourselves for a better future. For we can't get tomorrow's job with yesterday's skill. If we plan to survive, we got to produce the will. Imagine I carry a passport, my great Britain, yet I need a visa to go to England. It's England is lying flat on the back, still they want me to hold up the Union Jack. No, it's Britain said that we have to go. So let us sit down and reason and plan we show. There's no time to idle, no time for trouble. It's time we get serious. It's time that we start to work and stop making jokes.
For sure, my good people of St. Kitts and Nevis, it's time to work and stop making joke with our beloved Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. That's the man himself, the King Elimat. That one is called his joke, the making. I'm DJ Marisha, and I'm coming to you live and direct from the Gaza this evening. Yes, the DJ is back in the Bronx for a few days, hanging out and taking care of some business. And I'll be coming to you along with two guests this evening. The legend himself, the man Dr. Garfield Alexander, is in the house, along with Mr. Oakland Benter will be chatting in a bit. For those of you maybe online just scrolling and running to us and wondering what this podcast is all about, let me just drop this quick ad and let you know that DJ Marisha is in the area. Let your friends know that DJ Marisha is live and lively this evening.
Wednesday evenings are heating up. Log on to DJ Marisha's Facebook Live broadcast every Wednesday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a frank and a candid exploration into the social, cultural, political, and economic issues affecting our federation. And just in case you missed it, you can also catch the broadcast on his YouTube channel, DJ Marisha. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube and smash that bell. You will be notified whenever he goes live. DJ Marisha, every Wednesday evening, Facebook 6 to 8 p.m. or thereafter on his YouTube channel, DJ Marisha. Log on.
Yes, you heard it right. Each and every Wednesday evening, we are here from 6 to 8 p.m. Just log on, check us out. And if you miss us here on the YouTube channel, you find, on Facebook, you find us on the YouTube channel. But my good people, I'm going to jump into Dwyer commentary for this week, Wednesday, August 20th. But just before we do that, let me just drop a little clip here from a prediction that the man, Dr. Garfield Alexander, has voiced.
DJ Marisha, I don't want you guys to take your eyes off him. Remember, he's been around for some time. Let's go back to COVID and lockdowns. The gentleman came in, was locked down in quarantine, and then realized the total hypocrisy, tyranny, and oppression of the then administration during our most horriblest time. Spoke out not only spoke out, became an activist. And then you know what he did? Organize and centralize. And he never stopped organizing and centralizing until Timothy was gone. I don't even want to talk about the involvement he had before and the Douglas administration and the Harris. We ain't gonna talk about that. I'm just talking that during COVID, that man, both on this front, locally, and in the US, waged war against tyranny and oppression. One simple man, a DJ as he calls himself. He never called himself an engineer or anything else, just a DJ, because he understands the power of voice, and not just voice, autonomous, independent, honest, transparent voice always wins in the end. So it could be persons with unlimited power and unlimited money. He somehow always becomes the David against the Goliaths. Be careful with him. Be kind to him. Watch him. Because trust me, he's going to triumph in the end again.
For sure, and that prediction will definitely come to fruition in the not too distant future. And with that, let's take a quick listen to my boy J.A. Dwyer Astafan commentary for today, Wednesday, August 20, 2025.
Greetings. I was Minister of Consumer Affairs between 2000 and 2004. In 2003, we passed a Consumer Protection Act. But getting that act through was like pulling teeth. It took forever, largely due to the efforts of a section of the private sector, which resisted it just about every step of the way. Of course, I was not happy, but from the experience, I learned that I had been naive, even foolish, to presume that we would be able to pass that law so easily. And I learned even then, notwithstanding the fact that it was a Labour administration in office, the people with money in this country have a lot of power. I've said to you in a recent commentary that some people see politics as the art of getting votes from the poor and campaign money, and I would add other money, from the rich, by promising to protect the poor from the rich and promising to protect the rich from the poor. Who do you think has gotten more protection over the years? And we are not unique in this country. I think this is a universal shortcoming. I'm addressing it here in St. Kitts and Nevis. After that act of 2003, little was done insofar as strict and narrow consumer protection measures were concerned. Certainly none by the Team Unity government, which came into office in 2015 and sat there for 7 years. They did nothing in terms of consumer protection or wage increases. Similarly, for the PAM NRP administration, which sat there between 1980 and 1995 and did nothing. Let me give you a brief history of wages in this land in recent times. During the Bratcher years, there was no national minimum wage. Instead, wages were negotiated between the union and the employers of the country. But when the Bratcher era ended, PAM now got into power, and their obsession with killing the union and weakening the Labour Party achieved a great measure of success. But in the process, workers individually and collectively were weakened. Now without a strong union to negotiate, the workers were isolated and siloed, afraid and distrusting of each other, and unable to find industrial, social, and economic equity through the bargaining process. So they're thrown into the deep, rough seas of the world of industry. Let me say that the damage to the union was in large part also caused by the Labour Party leadership after Labour got into power, because the party had politicized the union over the decades to the extent that you could see no daylight between the union and the party. And this turned off a lot of people, and PAM smartly capitalized on that. Not in the best interest of the workers, but in their own best strategic political interests. And remember where their roots are. And for 15 years of PAM NRP, workers suffered the consequences. Then Labour was returned in 1995, When we got in 1995, workers were making $125 a week. Unfortunately, by that time, the image of the union had already been deeply damaged, and we saw the emergence of a new generation of young people who knew nothing about unions and about the collective strength of workers, the economic and social empowerment that comes through that. And to make things worse, the new labor leader was not particularly sympathetic to or concerned with workers' unions. So his leadership did little or nothing to repair the situation with worker representation through unions. And while the St. Kitts Nevis Trades and Labor Union was not dead, it certainly was limping heavily, and it continues to limp today. Now, it took Labour 9 years after being returned to office to take steps. And with the union not having sufficient reach to cover the broad community, the administration, for the first time in our country's history, introduced a national minimum wage. If I recall correctly, I was the Minister of Labour at the time, and that minimum wage was $250 a week. 4 years later, still a Labour administration, Sam Conda was the Minister of Labour. Minimum wage raised to $300 a week. Then in 2014, Patrice Nisbet was the Minister of Labour, and the minimum wage was raised to $360 a week. Labour lost the government in 2015. Team Unity occupied between 2015 and 2022. In 2018, a committee was set up to consider minimum wage. The committee said no minimum wage increase, which was exactly what the Team Unity administration wanted to hear. And so no wage increase was granted. Not in their 7 years did Team Unity, not in their 15 years did PAM and NRP. So let us compare PAM, NRP, and Team Unity 22 years together. Not one minimum wage increase. Labour, 23 years altogether between 1980 and now. 5 increases. Why 5? Because 2023, a committee was set up, and as a result of its work and the blessings of the administration, in 2024 January, the minimum wage was raised to $430 a week, and from July 1st, 2025, it went up to $500 a week. As an aside, I wonder why some of these politicians, after all of the damage and disrespect that they have dished out to workers, the cruelty and the callousness, how do they still have the gall to go to those same poor people and ask them to vote? What perplexes me even more is how the same poor people can vote for these people, sucker them, use them, abuse them, fool them, manipulate them. So as I said, 22 years in government, PAM, NRP, and Team Unity, which is PAM, PLP, and CCM, not one minimum wage decision to increase. Labour 23 years, 5. That statistic tells a lot, and it is important to note that a living wage benefits not only the consumer, but also the supplier, because most of what goes into the consumer's pocket quickly returns to the pockets of the suppliers anyway. The average consumer does not save a lot. He or she does not have enough to save a lot. They spend. And who do they spend with? Suppliers of goods and services. Meanwhile, the business community, and here I'm talking about the big movers and shakers, because they pretty much control the market, and to a large extent the politicians, they have never collectively admitted that in many cases they, with their steep prices and their raw profiteering, have made it inordinately harder for poor people to get by. And with that callousness and cruelty in the marketplace and cold-bloodedness, obviously there has been the need to increase minimum wages. You cut the margins. Of course you have to make a fair profit. You have to have standby money to grow and for contingencies and all of that. You have to pay your people properly. You have to pay your customs fairly and your inland revenue and your social security. But that doesn't mean you can't be fairer to your consumers. And if they're getting blows and their only recourse is for an increase in salary, increase in wage, then they have to get some breathing room. But despite what I said earlier about all of this minimum wage and increases in it, in my opinion, not one administration between 1980 and now has taken sufficient steps sufficient steps to ensure that wage increases work by ensuring fair and consistent price control, quality control, and other aspects of consumer protection and fair trade. If you apply the whole package, you'll get a better market and a better society. So the arrangement has never really been completely fair, despite the superior efforts of successive labor administrations and the lack thereof by others. And the situation is still not fair. The present labor administration went into parliament in 2023 and passed a Consumer Protection Act, which on the face of it, you would guess was an indication that our present leaders are sensitized to the big picture. That is living wages, fair prices, quality control, consumer protection, the whole 9 yards. But if you read the act, you might be disappointed, and not only disappointed, but concerned. I'll give you just a couple of things. There is a provision for a consumer protection board, but no provision for a representative of consumers to be on that board. Further, the procedure to address consumer complaints regarding pricing and displaying expired goods and so forth can be sluggish and bureaucratic and can leave an opening for an offending supplier to get away. In this regard, I urge consumers, take out your phone and take pictures. Get your evidence. I want to speak for a moment specifically about expired goods. The food merchants might argue that they buy perishables which are close to expiring because these goods are cheaper and they allow our consumers to save money. Some of them might even be cynical enough to say that they are doing our consumers a favor. But that is unfortunate nonsense. The truth is, they sell these items at a substantial markup. And if you challenge them, as I have done, they might offer you to sell this expired food, shelf priced perhaps at $15, for as little as $1. I've been offered $5 for $15 products, and even $1. Mind you, the law says whatever the law is, because this act repealed the act of 2003, but this act is not even law yet. Expired goods must not be displayed. But who is policing the suppliers? You see goods on shelves in languages that you can't understand. Who is protecting the consumers? Is the vote less important than the donation? It is this kind of behavior that has forced successive labor administrations to raise the minimum wage. Another thing about this act is that the punishment and fines are low. For example, there may be a fine of $5,000 or less, or imprisonment for 6 months or less. But if a poor, needy mother walks into one of these places and steals 3 tins of sardines, she can go to jail for up to 7 years. Where's the judicial equity? Where's the justice? Go heavy on the big man. Balance justice. And while I do not condone stealing, I can more quickly empathize with that mother than I can with a profiteering, pillaging, unconscionable supplier. And again, I do not condone stealing, whether it is from the small person or worse yet, from the big person. I just mentioned 2 years ago the act passed in Parliament, but 2 years later today, the act is still not in force, and it may not come into force until next year. Why not, I'm asking? Are people taking their time? Is this a matter of the same old parading and grandstanding about justice for consumers and the small man? All of that nice sounding stuff. But deep down, little more than politicians talking the talk, but not walking the walk. And in the process, our people continue to be punished because the poor man's vote might not be taken as importantly as the rich man's money. This relationship of one set against the other, votes on the one hand and big money on the other, and politicians seeming to take the side of the money, this has to stop. We must all understand that we are all in this together. All of us must be given a fair chance to flourish, while at the same time, our value must not be measured along the demeaning lines of a vote or a dollar. Indeed, a vote is a sacred thing. A dollar is a tool of trading. We must never confuse the two. We all need to be protected, and we all need to be respected. I ask the good Lord to help us, but more so I'm asking him to help us put spines in our backs. clarity in our minds, and marching boots on our feet for good causes for our people and our country and future generation. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's the commentary for Brother G.A. Dwyer Astafan for today, Wednesday, 20th August, 2025. And I love that commentary, Dwyer. I really love that commentary, but there's some missing gaps in your commentary, Dwyer, and I hope that we can fill those gaps because over the past years that I've been running this podcast and I've been playing your commentaries, Dwyer, it's on a weekly basis, people come to me and ask me why I'm not asking you about the Lille Valley project that you was the Minister of Tourism at the time that have not come to fruition. So Dwyer, I am convinced after listening to this commentary from so many years back that your memory is in good stead. So I am asking you to try give some updates and the status of that Lille Valley project for the clarity of our people of our beloved federation, because there has been many individuals and more so recently reaching out to me about that, especially since that little game that was played in Parliament last week about sustainable zones, special zones there in our beloved federation that have sparked even a greater interest in our lands. So, Brother Dwyer, I am calling on you for that. In addition to that, you spoke about boots on the ground, and I'm happy you went there, Dwyer, because it's time for us to hit those streets. It's time to put boots on the ground with what we're seeing taking place in a very short time with this administration. Anyone that took the time out to understand about the DJ, you all would understand where we are today from 2020, 2022 to present. And I must give Dwyer some credit because when I decided to hit the ground with some boots back in 22, Dwyer, Sam Kanda, the Big Lice, Larry Vaughan, a couple of other people, the late Earl Clark, even though he was in a wheelchair, he called me and volunteered to be a part of that match. And Dwyer, actually, a 70-plus-year-old man, was the individual pushing Earl Clark around the streets. So I really want to give Dwyer some credit. I know Dwyer have the ability to do what it takes to make corrections. And my good people, as I've said in the past, I campaigned for change of government because of what transpired under the Team Unity administration. That Team Unity comprised of the People's Action Movement, PAM, which was led by Sean Richards at the time. The Concerned Citizen Movements and Nevis, which was led by Premier Mark Brantley and still today led by Premier Mark Brantley, who is also the leader of the opposition in the federal government. Now, Timothy Harris, who was then the Prime Minister, leader of the PLP, that was the coalition government that we marched against to stop this corruption. And my good people, this evening we're going back there, because some people seems to have a little amnesia at their convenience to support their party. But if we, no matter which party you support, if we don't come together to save our beloved federation, many of us not going to have a federation to live in. Many of us going to have to run out of that federation. And those in Parliament, they are setting up themselves with a nest someplace comfortable to rest, Is the poor people going to make to pay? And I stand with the poor. I am from a poor family. I am from a poor neighborhood in St. Kitts Nevis, the Republic of St. Paul's. And I'm going to stand up for the poor every time. I'm going to stand up for the country every time. I have a serious concern about this present administration. But before I get further into the program, let me ask Mr. Bent and Brother Garfield to tap their screen, open their mic, and bring them into this conversation. Gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to yet another conversation on the DJ Marisha platform. Brother Garfield, your mic is still closed. Tap your screen, open your mic, please. Brother Benta, is your mic open?
It's open. I think it is. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
good, yeah. Okay. Brother Garfield, you've been missing in action, so I'm giving you the first shot.
Wow. I'm gonna put it in chronological sequence though, because before I got to Dwyer, again, one of the things I've always appreciated about your program is that it's your program. Like it's done the Marisha way. Like a lot of people are into podcasts and all want to assume roles as podcasters, and they're not. It doesn't feel genuine and doesn't feel original. From the time I've been watching this show, it has followed basically the same basic format. It is an enrichment of all things Kitishan. It is steeped in calypso. So I was listening to Elimat because again I'm a generation different. Well, I don't know about Mr. Bento. He looks quite young. So I'm gonna speak of Mr. Marish, a generation before mine's. And I grew up hearing, politics is rich with stereotypes. And it's a good thing because it allows you to put yourself in the frame that those persons were at that time, right? Because a lot of biases are around. And I understood, what I understood was Elimat was very much a Pam man. So when I heard this song, and even when I was a young man, in my newly born consciousness, it still impacted me like, he's so on the fence. Why does it seem so, like it felt like on the fence, but now I'm seeing it that he was truly balanced. And I just want to go back to some of the things that he spoke of there. The burning of the courthouse. Like I always heard about, and he was the only time I've heard the whole entire sentence about that is in the words of the song. Like I can't get my adults to speak of the burning of the courthouse. I can't get my adults to speak of Billy Herbert and certain topics around that, and we have to speak of them. Obviously, they've traumatized us, so we can't speak of these things. So you know what happens now when we see these things on the news, like shipment of guns and huge cashments of cash and drugs. We think that's so foreign from us when all those things have occurred here. We don't have to find reference points outside of the Caribbean region or outside of St. Kitts to of any movie, any scene within a movie that you could think of that's mind-blowing, it has occurred in St. Kitts already. And when he spoke of the courthouse and he referenced it as saying evidence of a part of our history.
You're freezing there, Brother Alexander. I do not know what's taking place on that end, but it's a freeze there. Brother Benta, you're up?
Yeah, I'm up by here.
Okay, while Brother Alexander, I guess. Okay. You froze a while ago, Brother Alexander. So if you want to start over from the courthouse.
Okay. Oh, I was saying about the courthouse. He actually spoke of it was evidence or part of our history was gone. He didn't just see it as somebody burnt the courthouse and people benefited. He saw it as even the person that committed the crime didn't understand the depth of what they were doing to all of us. He spoke of divide and rule, linked it to secession in Nevis, but he also went a step forward and made it deeply personal when he spoke of Star Black. He be a man. He said, what we're going to
Yes, the jamming continues and that end. But Alexander, I'm gonna let you pick up every time you get jam. I'm gonna pick you up. So you start back from Star Black. Whenever you get jam, I'm bringing you back around.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So he spoke of cessation and linked it to Nevis, but he also linked it to a very personal part of him. He spoke of his band member Star Black. Like I never heard of the band members apart from a few. So when he spoke up and called him by name and said, "What are we gonna do? We're going to send him back to Nevis with his land and his house," which means this man was here, not only contributing musically, he was here, either had a Kittitian wife and was building his livelihood here in St. Kitts. And that interchange between St. Kitts and Nevis, it flows without anybody stopping it. It is the same as almost like we're one. It's just politicians and a few narrow-minded individuals that keep making us think like we're somehow separated. We are not. He went on, he spoke of things like neo-colonialization. So when we talk about these new age words that we think white people introduced to us, Elimat spoke of a new type of colonization. He didn't say neo colonization, a new type of colonization that's gotten us here. And this is one song that's speaking about Pam and labor, and how the division is created between us for other people to benefit. He was swinging up this all the time. He even speak of having a British passport and still need a visa to go into Britain. So even when we're talking about CBI and that was done in a clandestine way, Element was thinking on that level and trying to raise the consciousness of everybody around him in a danceable way, in a social way, in a way that people could listen not only in his generation, but even now. Yeah. So to get to Dwyer's commentary, look, I want to move quick. I don't think of Dwyer, and I tell you, I love Dwyer. I don't think he realized how he indicts himself. Dwyer said he was the labor minister. He and Sam Conda were the two labor ministers. Patrice Nisbet, he went down and list them. Marsha is now the labor minister. So he has shown us in his commentary how we're repeating the same mistakes, the same vicious cycles over and over. But he's running it in a way where it's a jigsaw puzzle, where you only get everybody else's mistakes. But I can tell Dwyer this, and this is something I'm practicing too. When we speak of history, we must speak of history in an experiential way, where we could speak of our mistakes, where history is spoken in a way where it's more subjective, where we say, hey, I was in a part of this cabinet in 1995 and we did this and we thought it was this, because we can only benefit now from Dwyer admitting his and his colleagues' mistake. We can't benefit from him just pointing out isolated mistakes and divorcing himself from it. It has to be in a 4-dimensional way where Dwyer could say, hey, this is what we were thinking, this is what we thought. Even after 10 years later, we thought this, and then look at how it is in 2025. And go us and ratify the mistakes, because we will learn from his mistakes. We won't, well, some people will hold it against him, but I know we won't. But when he does it in this cowardly and dastardly way, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So it's needed. His confessions, whatever you want to call him or label him as, they're needed. But I'm saying it still leaves a very bad taste in my mouth. And the last thing I want to comment on is you mentioned feet, boots on the ground. And that was very much what you did. The next step is not to just have boots on the ground, because we could see where people get into their military boots, hit the ground, but when it comes to building, when it comes to sharing, they're not about that. They're very much about boots on the ground, especially when they see the momentum has turned or the ship is sinking. So I want us to be very careful about the mobilization, because Batcher taught me about mobilization. Yeah. Malcolm X and all these guys taught me about mobilization, but the part we keep missing is the planning. The part that we keep missing is the sacrificing and the getting ready. I'm gonna bring us back to Papa Batcher again. When that strike, when they did that strike that last for weeks, they had to be prepared. They had to have alternative means. There had to be a trade and a labor union, not just a labor looming in one and put boots on the ground. There had to be, when they were fighting against the plantocracy and all the systems of oppression.
Yeah, the jam again there, brother Alexander. But I'll bring you back around once the jam is released, because I know that the truth hurts, and some people do not really want to hear the conversation from that end. I am here in the Bronx, so I am coming through clean. So brother Alexander, you was jammed again. So go back to the Papa Batcher. So
okay. So I was saying that famous strike that made the Labour Party into what it is today. And not only made Labour Party, made St. Kitts, because again, the workers and the plight of the workers, before we had union, before unions were legal, Bradshaw coordinated a strike. But it wasn't just about boots on the ground and having mobilization. It was also about covert planning, because if the systems of oppression knew what they were planning,
yes, but Alexander is jammed one more time, but we're gonna continue with it. Brother Benter is there in the Virgin Islands. I'm here in the Bronx, New York. So I guess we are getting a clean signal from the internet, while Brother Alexander is there in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis and continues with his jamming. I guess is Juve there in St. Kitts this afternoon, because a lot of jamming on that end. Brother Benter, I'll let you kick in the meantime while we get Brother Alexander back online. A quick synopsis of who is Brother Benter, and your comment, if you have any, and Dwyer's commentary. Your mic is closer, Sam, because I'm seeing you moving, but I'm not hearing you.
Here we go.
Okay, correct, yeah.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Oakland Benta, a former chief of police in the U.S. Virgin Islands and a former senator of the U.S. Virgin Islands and ex-vice president of a telecommunication corporation all over the world. As I listened to Mr. Dwyer's commentary, I couldn't help but or be remiss in not talking about when he spoke about expired food, as well as the La Valley project. And, you know, what people need to know with the supermarkets, they don't really lose when they purchase food that expires. They have what you call FIFO. And a FIFO pretty much talks about first expired, FE, first expired, and first, and then I got the other part of it goes with the first out. In other words, they have items that they have in storage. They're gonna make sure to bring them up forward before they put those that they just got on the shelves or in the freezers or, well, out to display. And in most instances, they purchase the items on a commission base where what you don't sell, they send back. Some they know is perishable, of course, and the vendors, a lot of local farmers alike, so they understand. It's an agreement they make. What we sell as a result of what we contract you to do, and what we pay you for. But what we don't sell, we send it back to you so you can do what you want to do with the expired good. The other thing is forecasting your food sale to make sure that you know exactly who comes in, how many people comes in to buy tomatoes or lettuce or spinach or whatever have you, and you manage your inventory that way so that you make sure you're actually moving the products on your shelf. And in some instances, we get really bad. They donate it to charitable organizations, senior citizen centers, homeless shelters, homes for children, or feeding centers for homeless, and so forth. And then, of course, composting, if they want to do that for farming or to livestock, pigs, goats, depending on what you have. So there's a way that they get it off their hands. But I when I went to the La Valley project, and that goes back, and I can remember a gentleman by the name of Don Blackman and a guy by the name of Eric Dorset and Unit Trust Bank out of Trinidad. I mean, I've been amongst this for a while to see a few things. And what became of that project with all the funding that Unit Trust, the bank invested in funding that project for what it really should have been, it's sad that it wasn't finished. It's sad. We're talking about millions of dollars that went through there. The only thing that I can remember that they were able to complete was the power generation side of it with the generators. And I don't know if they ever used them to supply power to the island, but it was really for a golf course. And in the plan that there was, the magnificent part of that, I know they worked on getting the marina section of it prepared. There was a company out of St. Croix or an individual heavy equipment operator out of St. Croix who was doing all that work by the name of Fergatrack. And what transpired with that when I looked at it, if they had got that project off the ground, based on what was in place, that would have transformed into what you call a smart city eventually. Because you had the final role of the tramway, the track system that you have with the train, where you turn around somewhere within there. Then you also had the water desalination. You had many other things that came into play, but that would have been self-sufficient. But it would have been able to accommodate by dispersing energy to the rest of the island and water as well, based on how things would have been arranged. There was even a plan to bring an underwater cable from Puerto Rico for power to the La Valley project. And then the magnificent golf course, the condos, the hotel, I mean, Five Diamond Hotel. I could remember working with Don Blackman, I tell you. And as we were moving and looking at this thing, it ran into a snag where it reached a mark where funding from Unit Trust and other things were supposed to have been done. The government didn't move forward with it, and it just became what it is today, unfortunately. And in looking at how we have really disseminated so much of resources, funding-wise, into projects that sits there and don't move anywhere. When you look at the funds that are lost, it's a loss because you don't have a product to regenerate what you would have been recouping based on what you invest. You've lost the funds, and now you're going to start over, and you're going to bleed more out of your own community. Where this would have been a project where employment would have been significant on the water side, water desalination, the electric side of it, and then the expertise in the marina as well. You would not have that other marina would have been the secondary. This would have been the primary. You would have had a Class A facility even before the Marriott Hotel. That's how far we went back and tried to move St. Kitts forward. But the plan became one later on where we was hopeful that that thing would have revitalized itself. The train would have run right around the island, with certain things taking place. The group was going to cut a road through the hill, through the mountain, if you will, from the airport to cut down on the drive time to the La Valley property to enhance away from town, the airport, and so forth, cutting the timeline down to something else. And of course, a train, if they wanted to take the train, that whole system would have been developed into a class A. Kept the old, throw the baby with the bathwater is what they did, and then continue with it. And just because of mismanagement of funding, because what should have been in place for certain things did not make it to where it was supposed to, and then the project, like I said, died. Can that project be revitalized? It sure can. That's pristine property. For the hindsight of those who saw, and myself along with the others who were looking at it, it can still take a new life on. The way to go, as Mr. Marisha know, part of my meeting was supposed to have been with the Prime Minister is talking about a smart city. For St. Kitts, benefiting the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. But the picture is still there. The property is still there. The innovation is still there. The reality is still there. Some people don't talk about it, other investors see it and run with it. That's what you want. If there's an investor that wants to run with it and develop it, let them come and run and do what they will with it. But to make sure, though, what we had in place that the employment from management, supervisory, and all those other people who sit in the responsible position had to be people from St. Kitts and Nevis. You find a lot of projects, and we go back to the Marriott Hotel, unfortunately, that a lot of the supervisors came in from elsewhere to train those on island to become supervisors in hospitality and many other things where they lived at the hotel, because that's where a lot of those guys from Jamaica and other places stayed. They had a section of quarters for the employees, those who were visiting. But those who lived on the island, they had to find a way to work. You had to pay for transportation, you had to pay for just about everything. Those who lived on property, they were fed on property, right? They didn't have to put in any funding into their homestead or the quarters in which they stayed in. And of course, they utilized the facility for the laundry and so forth to wash their clothes. And of course, they were fed. Was there a real balance in that? Was it really fair for the people who live on island who now have to catch a cab, get to work, course the meal, they make sure certain things were in place, but they still have to pay a percentage for the meal? And you look at that, and that was one of the things I think any developer today bringing anything into the country where you have staffing, that there is and should be a mechanism also to make sure that your local staff are taken care of in a fashion. I know that there may be a bus for some from the hotel now that takes people home, whatever have you. Some still get to work by way of taxi, but don't make the checkpoint where the pickup is. But if you want to encourage employees to really stay at home and work within your facility, you got to work it in that the employees are also part of the brand of the development. And when I say part of the brand, part of the initiative that you as an employee feel like you are actually an owner as well. That you put more interest into something that you feel that you're a part of, that you have ownership in. And that's why you have a lot of hotels that make sure that the employees are fed, they're hydrated, all right? And they have their spirit in an area where it is socially clean, that they feel whole, rather than sitting under a tree or something of the sort. So with Mr. Asafan's delivery, I just thought that the Levati project that sort of so clear to me. If the government or the people who sit in the position, and hopefully I see Mr. Marisha here in planning forward, you knew the plan for that smart city. And a smart city really is this. If you have a company that's in Japan, China, and anywhere in the world, they'll have an office in that smart city. But the smart city comes with schools. It also comes with healthcare. It comes with supermarkets, and it becomes a one-stop, one-shop environment where you're coming into a place where it's global. The communication is dynamic because the system from data banking, you have a lot of companies have a lot of data that they need some place to bank it. That you have that infrastructure structured in a smart city, that country will come and pay for you to be the data banking, where the data banking, the countries pay you for storing the data. Now, technologically, people within your country also become savvy in technology. This we call a new era, the new forward, the 22nd, 23rd century. We have not in the Caribbean began to really step up or step in to this new era. We're still saying the same thing that we've saying for many decades. And at the end of the day, in people who gets employed, if you go that route, are the people who come in rather than the people who are in, who would stay in. And if you're in order to get into a level, you'll have to travel out and come back in under the auspices of something else rather than being in where your country control the employment segment of that specific trade of business that you have a control to manage. So bringing in a smart city is key, but we got to make sure that infrastructure is structured in a way to our education system, our schools, our universities, for our children who are going to these places, that they're being prepared, they're getting the education, the skill set, so they can walk right in. When you got to walk out of your own home to come back in, is never a glory moment, because now you're employed by a company in New Jersey, a company in New York, where you could be employed or self-employed in your own home as a contractor or a segment of a business owner. That the system is using your professionalism, your business, to provide a contract to you to work on their behalf. So it was quite interesting to listen to Dwyer and what the plan was, or plan still is, for Smart City and the Valley project.
Yeah, Brother Benta, thanks for that explanation. But, it's funny. While you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, since this government took office, I have had several conversations with many individuals, including the Prime Minister, about these opportunities. And to every time I look around, it's like deja vu. When I work at the hospital here in New York, and I sit in a boardroom with the bigwigs, and we're having conversation about developing the hospital and doing whatever, and I bring ideas across, they just pass that suggestion. They don't discuss it. They just pass it. But somewhere along the line, 2-3 weeks later, the VP will come back and present my idea in a different package and make it look like it's something new. And we used to fight about that all the time. And I see similar things happening here with this government. Many things I suggested to them, even at the JNF. If you go up there tomorrow, you might see a little, a little area that they call information center that they put there, where you go and speak to someone. I give them something that would be much better, more presentable for the general public, and something more safer for the workers there. We would have not only someone to man that area, but security will man the area to make sure that nobody running loose in and out the institution as they please. But they try to do it in their own little way. Last week in Parliament, I heard them presenting something about special sustainable zones, taking away some 500 acres of land and Nevis, and maybe some 750 or more, and St. Kitts to have these special zones. There's no need to take our lands from our citizens to present to foreigners to come and have a haven in our beloved federation, while the citizens there are not benefiting, continue to scrunt. When you spoke about Le Valley, as an electrician, I laugh while you're speaking, because yes, the generator is there. The information for the desal plants, they're there. But that is all you're going to find. But that location there, Brother Benter, I have said this under the previous PAM administration. I have spoke about this to Denzel Douglas under his administration, and I'm speaking about it now still today under this administration. As an electrician, knowing the electrical issues we have annually in our beloved federation, is bad enough. Normally we don't have power continuously. Never mind when we have hurricanes. When those lampposts are knocked down, it takes us weeks at a time to get power restored. I have recommended having these power lines going underground. I have recommended having various substations throughout the island where you can isolate if there's a problem. You don't have to shut down a whole country to repair a problem. And even if there's an issue, could be in Bastia, it could be in Keon, it could be in St. Paul's, it could be wherever. You can isolate those areas and still maintain power in the country. And the perfect area for what was taking place at La Valley that I put my input on is this. Right now, they're renting generators, I understand, paying X amount of millions per month to rent a generator up at the Needmos area, while they have generators on order. But Benta, I spent some time with the National Guard. I spent 40 plus years as an electrician. We have some ships out there that go to these countries that are underprivileged. Do you know if the government of the day and even the government of today was to revitalize the situation down there at the La Valley, we can bring a power ship right in shore and power this entire island of St. Kitts Nevis without paying this humongous amount of money monthly for electric power. There are ships out there ready and standby that can be used to power St. Kitts. It doesn't take much to power that little island. But speaking to a prime minister that we have today, that conversation is not putting money in their pocket, is not putting money into their bank accounts, is not a kickback, it's something for the country and it's something for the people. So they don't want to hear about that from the DJ, because the DJ is coming to speak about the country, what is beneficial to the country and the people, not to go into the overseas account. So those conversations they don't want to have. They want to hear about special zone where somebody going to dump a couple of dollars into their overseas account. And I am here today, you know, and I'm happy that Brother Garfield is here, because I know Garfield might have traveled out to Cuba and did his studies, become a doctor, but you guys are far removed from my experience and my expertise as an electrician. I have been through it. I have been there. And it hurts me to see what I campaign on for a change of government in St. Kitts Nevis, what could have been from 2020 to now, and where we are today. I continue to say we are worse off today than when this government took office in 22. Because there are so many things that they dropped the ball, so many things that I presented. But I am not offering them money in their pocket. I am offering them ways to solve the problems that we have in our Bill of Federation. They don't want to hear that. Even across the Nevis. When I look at that structure that they call a hospital wing sitting on Nevis, that started in 2017, supposed to complete in 2 years. Today's 2025, and they're talking about COVID. The place was supposed to be completed before COVID even came into the play. What I don't understand is how our citizens, that's supposed to be some 90+% sensible, book sense, does not see what the damage that this politician is doing to the country. You know, somebody sent me a clip here, and it moved me and I laughed and at the same time, because apparently someone sent an email to Patches on Monday evening and he read it. And someone called me and said, Marisha, thanks for what you're doing on a Wednesday evening, because people are listening, people are paying attention. So I know Brother Alexander there was hanging out over the last couple of days, so he might have missed this one. So let me drop this clip for Brother Alexander.
27 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. I haven't forgotten the emails, and this one reads, Mr. Marisha, I thank God for you. You have demonstrated yourself as a man of truth, a man who is not afraid to call a spade a spade. You have the courage to stand up to the highest administrator in the land and tell them when they are wrong. Not many of us can do that. I am happy that you have exposed the deceitfulness and hypocrisy of Dwyer with regard to his weekly commentaries. Marisha, as you rightly said, Dwyer has know plenty more than what he is telling us, and you have evidence to support what you say. He might be able to mislead some of us, but certainly not you. Dwyer has two tongues. He has said many times people must be able to speak out against wrongdoings, but he silently and refused to condemn the Prime Minister for his arbitrarily relinquishing your post at JNF because you spoke the truth. He will not condemn the Prime Minister for refusing to have a meeting in Nevis after 3 years in office to hear their concerns, but claiming to be the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. Keep up the good works. Marisha reads that.
So, gentlemen, again, I am happy that the citizens are paying attention. And these politicians think that they are brainwashing everyone because they have been successful over the years in bullshitting the masses and doing their stuff. It is clear, sometime back during 2022, on this same podcast, Dwyer broke it down for me that there is a ratio of 5% who is going to be the rich, as you call it in the money business. And they're going to be a 5% that those that have the power will give a little crumble and using them to convince the 90% that is struggling that they're getting the best. Unfortunately, in 2025, we are back there. And it appears to me that Dwyer is in that 5% that is trying to tell the DJ who is in the 90% today that they're pissing in my face, but it's rain falling. And I want Dwyer to know something, This DJ is not that easily fooled. So Dwyer, you're my partner. You're my brother. Step it up. Call a spade a spade. We know that this government, they are not doing right by the country. And before I move on to my next topic, I do not know if you want to comment, Brother Alexander, because you got cut off earlier.
Yeah, man. Mr. Bento commented after you played that recording of Dr. Jew. I think it was his first sitting in Parliament. If it wasn't the first sitting in Parliament, is when he went all in on the CBI program and the prison.
That was months after, and I'm gonna play it for you again tonight. As a matter of fact, you want to speak on that? Let's go.
No, let me speak on it first, and then you can play it because it can resonate.
All right.
And I was taken it back when I first heard it because I thought I'd never heard it before. But it's only when Mr. Bento presented, I realized, yes, I was gushing. I was proud. So even now, when I speak to my other colleagues who and I went to school with him, in different realms and different layers, they're relating things back to me, and I'm now seeing them for what they really are. So when I listened him then to find out what I know now, like it brings to the fore the age-old question of what made them change. And so that's my thesis I've been working on. Is it that persons have always been, evil or self-centered and egocentric? And it's not that. It's tolerance. I leave it up to tolerance. When you get there's a different level of tolerance. With Dwyer, he doesn't allow or tolerate certain things when it comes from certain persons, but he can tolerate it when it comes from a different set, even though it's the same ill, the same sin. And I see it with our politicians. What they would because when Dr. Jew presented that day, he was intolerant of all that was going on. And then we see that level of tolerance increase where he's allowing that. And then you see it with Dr. Douglas as well, because Mr. Bento spoke of La Valley, and we know of Whitegate and Kitchener and Christopher Harbour and Marriott. And what I want people to understand is the disgust I feel, because when I go back, I am quite able to recognize pattern. But apart that, I could remember where I was at each point during now going through these files and looking at these contracts. I could remember my economic, social, emotional and spiritual sentiments at the time. So I could remember when they spoke of Kittishanil and the promises were made, and it's not a Gaffey thing. If you go back and see the contracts that was promised, none of these companies, none of these entities, none of these bodies came close to what they promised, but received all that they were promised and more. And our leaders sat down, drafted these contracts, and were tolerant of the behavior of these investors, foreign direct investors, tolerant of all these behaviors, while at the same time being intolerant of persons who couldn't deliver on the small businesses. People couldn't pay for the homes. Intolerant when they put certain policies and decided, no, it was only for certain persons, when you would see them be so tolerant to the point where they're banking, they're investing, they're loaning monies to these entities. And this has gone on since 1980. And all these things are unconstitutional. So again, when we talk about hitting the boots on the ground, it doesn't need that. Within every party, these leaders are not living up to their fiduciary duties. Within the Constitution, within the oaths that they took, these leaders are not living up to their fiduciary duties. These leaders are not heroes. These leaders are not living up to anything at all. If we are to be guided by just the contracts of La Valley, Whitegate, KH, Kittishan Hill, even the Marriott, because if you go back and read the manifesto around that time, if you go back and read the contracts and what was promised by the entity that is known as the Marriott and what they have delivered and are still delivering today, it comes nowhere close, brothers. So it's not a Garfield and not a personal attack. These companies, these entities are not held, their feet are not held to the fire by the persons that lead us, and that is their fiduciary duty. Speak of the AG, and people think you're attacking these titles. They're not. These guys owe us. So even when you see them attack the union or sideline the union, it was just because they knew what their intentions are. There's no leader that would fight a union. The fact that we have pregnancy leave, ours, is because of a union. It's not about any government. Go and research history. No government worked for that. It was unions that fight for those, for the worker, for the worst class citizen, for the bottom of the pyramid. It was always the unions. The governments would follow after or jump and hype, but it was always union. And all a union is a collection of people who feel the same thing, that go through the same thing. So the first union you have is your family, because you don't pay your mother to go down and to become a filibuster. You don't pay your mother to go and let a teacher know, hey, you've been assaulting my children. You don't pay your mother to protect you from the neighbor or even from your father or from your brother. That's a union day, so days where it starts. So the same persons are trying to fundamentally, or have fundamentally eroded the union, have fundamentally eroded a Labour Party, because the Labour Party is supposed to be a mobilized union. It's not supposed to replace it. It's supposed to be the tool and the hand of a union. If they say their codes and their ethics are derived from there. And we're saying that Dr. Douglas, Dr. Drew, as far back as Dr. Simmons, all these guys were anti-union, did nothing to progress the union, formed companies and worked with companies, formed contracts that go against our written constitution and don't benefit us. And we're still here wondering if, like sometimes I feel like I don't even need to do this program, because who don't understand, who don't know, deserve what they're getting. So we should be meeting in like-minded rooms and deciding what are we going to do to increase our sovereignty, because these guys are not going to let go of power. You hear me say this all the time till it's being reverberated and copied by other persons. These guys will be king, queen, PS, head of government business of the ashes, if that is what it comes to. So we speak nothing when we're trying to direct our words to them or to their concubines. We speak nothing. We're really supposed to be organizing amongst ourselves and deciding what will be our future, because these guys are not obsessed or possessed by our future. These guys have already sold us out.
You know,
Ian Patch's libel. I wanted to mention Ian Patch's libel because he's doing something that's fundamentally unjust too. He keeps going down this road where he's trying to, again, like Dwyer doing this jigsaw puzzle, where he's seen as a crier and a voice in the wilderness of the poor and the oppressed, when he was fundamentally a part of the unity construct, when he still protects Dr. Harris, when he still protects everybody within that little shell, when he's still being supported by and sponsored by those entities, Ian Patch's light, but can never be a light that lights the way for me. And he keeps speaking down on Bratcher, and continuing that stereotype of Bratcher was against the Division people. But he, at the same time, in the same bit, it wants to laud the Division people as independent and as landowners. He must research his history as an elder and understand how those persons, because it wasn't willed to them by their forefathers. They didn't have documentation until until Bratcher came along. So the same way he empowered divisions, he empowered Kittitians. It's just that the divisions approached it differently because of the mindset of the division. That's where the divisions, people think divisions, I thought that the divisions were allowing Matt Brantley. It's just because they're so sovereign that they somehow feel like politics has nothing to do with me if I own my land and I'm doing my work, I'm working hard. But in divisions, he's undermining the future of your future generations and your children. So it's not that they're oblivious or they don't care. The division is so fundamentally more sovereign than the Kittitian that their approach to politics is different, but even them are waking up. So I don't want Patches to feel like he's the savior for anyone that isn't, that is already enlightened. He too must speak and must be held accountable for what he's done.
Well, every one of them, I would hope, will be held accountable for what they're doing to the country by the voters when the time is right. I come here on a Wednesday evening basically not to change minds, not to convince anybody of anything, but to present the facts as they are. Because it appears as though we as Kittitian and Division, we are very good at trying to bring down each other. Remember, every wrong that is done to you, even if it's one wrong and 90 good, you remember the wrong. You don't remember the 90 good that is done. And I have traveled the globe. I have met many individuals around the globe. We get along real good. During the 2022 campaign, many of the labor rights held me up in high places. They love me. They love what I was doing. And today, we are having a similar situation under this government. When I say similar, worse than what was happening. These same labor rights have me to kill because I'm not supposed to speak about it. But I promised them back then, I am campaigning for change. I want to see better for the Federation. I want to see better for the people. I'm going to drop a couple of clips here, so please allow me to drop them. The first clip I'm going to drop is by Premier Mark Brantley, because according to the information, they had options of doing many things on a federal level. And we found out a lot of things during the campaign of 2022 after 6 of them was terminated by Timothy. We found out that there was supposed to be a marijuana project. I do not know where that went. I remember there was a big sign of a brand new hospital to be built by Team Unity. After the election of 22, I do not know where that sign disappeared to. But one thing I am sure about is that in the end, we found out that there was a prison project over there in Estridge Estate. And the background on that project, believe it or not, if it was not for Philip Martinez of MSR's lawsuit against Prime Minister Joe and Timothy and whoever else, the information that we are having today, we would not have it, you know. I do not know how many of you can recall when the campaign of 22 by the then Labour Party, everything about the prison project was wrong. When Prime Minister Joe got into office and he got to his round table or his press conferences, and the question has been asked, how much passports were sold? What's the status? He take you around the table. He send you to this person, to that person, to the PS. Never bring a straight answer to the country until the MSR case. So I'm going to drop this clip with Premier Brantley because we did not know that this jail project was an issue until Premier Brantley came out with it first. So this way it started.
That the government is a co-conspirator in breaking the law. And let me explain to you what I mean. The law is very clear that under this alternative investment option, the cost is $175,000 if you want to access the citizenship of this country. Very clear. So Sean and I are 100% correct to say that the amount allocated to this jail is 5,500 shares times 175,000 US, because that is what the law provides. What I am hearing today in this press conference is that you can't rely on the law. No. The law says 175,000 US, but don't study the law. The shares will be sold at whatever the market is going to pay. So if the market only willing to pay $1,000 for Sinkis Nevis passport, I hope you all understand. And I was very surprised that no members of the press picked up on it. Because essentially that is what the CEO is telling us on behalf of Timo, that whatever, and you know, I reflected before I came here tonight, you know, and I said that might be the explanation after all. That because they are co-conspirators in breaking the law, co-conspirators in allowing our CBI to be undersold. Somebody tell me they must sell it like bread and cheese. I got a call from an agent in Dubai. And you know what she said to me? She said the Sinkis Nevis passport now is so common that rich families in Dubai buying them all for the maid in the home, the babysitter, the person who do, you know, make up the beds and thing in the house. Because they're selling it like sugar cake. Even black pudding costs more money. Like sugar cake, that's how they're selling it. And so they recognize that that is the situation. I have drawn it to the attention of the Prime Minister, of the Attorney General, of some individuals who I'm aware of who have been underselling the program. And all the underselling means, the last say you must sell here, instead of that they don't here. Undermining the program. None of them have done anything about it. In fact, I remember Juicy Byron saying, oh, that the people private arrangement. I don't know what that means.
So, gentlemen, that is one clip there with, you call it, the then Premier Mark Brantley, after his termination, along with 5 other colleagues from the Team Unity administration, calling out the prison project that it was wrong. As I said, we campaigned on that during 2022. Prime Minister Joe is well aware that we campaign on that situation. But when MSR sounded the alarm, it was taken to task and ended where they had to end up in court for this matter to get some resolution. That was 22. When you hear about 5,500 shares, I didn't understand how the numbers work out. But I got some numbers for you. I understand that the 5,500 shares for the prison project at 175,000 US dollars. I don't know if you have your calculator, your speed checker, brother Alexander, brother Benter. But I understand that 5,500 shares at 175,000 US is amounted to $960 to $500 million. That is a number I am getting. 962 $500 million. Now, according to the estimate to build that prison in Estridge, 40 million US dollars. Now, if you're going to build a prison costing 40 million US dollars, why would a prime minister or a country need to give an investor the equivalent of $900+ million for a 40 million project? I need to get an answer from Timothy Harris. I've been waiting for him to come and give me his update. I can't find Timothy hiding someplace. He missing in action. Timothy in the garden hiding. I'm still waiting for him to give me an answer. But That is not bad. I want us to listen to our current Prime Minister while in office now, as the Prime Minister, presenting to the Parliament, Madam Speaker, and the country about the bad deeds of this project and the arrangement. But what the country did not know, and what the DJ did not know at the time, is while making this presentation, our Prime Minister had actually signed off on the majority of those CORs. And I want to thank again MSR Media, aka Philip Martinez, and the great investigator that assisted me in getting this information confirmed, because I could not come here and speak about this information until Brother Benter was able to do his work and satisfy the claim that this was the case. So let's take a quick listen to our good Prime Minister in Parliament making his case.
Further, on August 18th, 2023, St. Kitts and Nevis CBI officials, led by Attorney General, met with UK Home Office about our new CBI regulations and practices. On October 26, 2023, our same team of officials met with the U.S. Treasury Department in Florida, along with officials from Caribbean CBI states, to discuss progress on U.S. Caribbean Roundtable 6 agreed principles, Madam Speaker. On January 25, 2024, the team met with EU visa officials in Dominica to update them on new regulations and current practices. Madam Speaker, we have maintained constant dialogue and engagement with our international partners. However, we knew that the prison project had contributed to over 20,000 new citizenships being granted in a short period of time, Madam Speaker. This is the travesty. The travesty in all of this, Madam Speaker. 20,000, Madam Speaker, citizenships, over 20,000 to 25,000 new citizenships being granted in a short period of time. Madam Speaker, let's pause for a moment on that. How can anyone grant 25,000 citizenships for a prison? 25,000 based on the new census, and the Minister of Sustainability is here, Senator Honorable Dr. Joya Clark, that we are about 53,000 residents here in St. Kitts and Nevis, both citizens and residents. 53,000, Madam Speaker. And for a prison, you give up to 25,000 new citizenships. Madam Speaker, this is a travesty. It is borderline treason. On a prison project, you have granted citizenships to up to 25,000 citizens, half of your population. Madam Speaker, if any percentage of those persons were to come here, what will happen to St. Kitts and Nevis? But nobody was thinking about St. Kitts and Nevis. People were thinking about themselves, Madam Speaker. Putting self above nation. This is a travesty. And I want history to record that I inform the people of this. Our children must know this. Our grandchildren must also know this. This cannot be hidden from the people. This is a travesty, Madam Speaker. Any leader who grants 25, 50% of your population in citizenship by investment over prison, any leader who does that, Madam Speaker, should never be able to face the people again. Madam Speaker, this hurts badly, you know. Each time I watch the number, I call the AG. AG, is this real? Is this number real? 25,000? Over a prison project? In such a short period of time, committing the country to this? committing the government to this? Madam Speaker, every citizen should be outraged by this. This was totally unnecessary. Our country should not have been subjected to this risk, Madam Speaker, with this high number of citizenships over prison.
Gentlemen, I know, Brother Benter, every time you hear that clip, your blood pressure goes up. But the people have a very short memory, for they must know. But Alexander, you could tap your screen up in your mic. I just want the people to understand this. While the Prime Minister is making this presentation in Parliament, the information he's presenting is factual. Why should a $40 million project garnered over $900 million, why should this country have to give up half of its population for prison? That's the question for you, Brother Alexander. You've been missing in action.
Actually, when I was on my little vacation, I've been staying in touch now. So I listened to your program and I definitely listened to Patch's program. But what hit me about both presentations is the fact that our dishonorable premier was involved in both. Like he said, he called the AG at the time and the Prime Minister at the time. After those two is not the end of the road as the Minister of Finance for the NIA, as an opposition leader, whether you appointed the title or not, he's the opposition leader, and that's how he carried himself all these years. So for Matt to be all knowing, be so informed then, and to raise the alarm to the point where he calls the AG and the Prime Minister, but yet he's still involved in this one because Mac's office or law firm sells passport. He still sells passport, and apart from he's still very much involved in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and very much involved in the NIA. So how is he still not rising an alarm? How is he still expanding our interactions with foreign direct investment? How is he still going full speed ahead down that road? How is he not innovative? How is he not called to be imaginative and diversify?
But when he said in that clip that he called the AG and the Prime Minister, you know which AG and Prime Minister he was referring to?
No, the ex, of course, but he's now involved where he could call the present one and the present Prime Minister, but he's all silent about this.
Wait, this is the point I want to get us to. I made a couple of calls to one or two ministers and the opposition benches, and I'm not getting a straight answer. Because I want to know, you got 6 elected members in government on the Labour side. You got 5 on the opposition benches, elected members. And I want to know, our current Prime Minister that campaigned against this prison, that know the matter is wrong for the country and for the citizens, went and signed off on these things, come back in Parliament, present this argument with his colleagues involved, because those cabinet members is aware of the situation. So all of them are complicit, every last one of them, including the AG. They sit there behind him, look at him, lying to Madam, what they call her, Madam Speaker, and the country. While there are people on the opposite benches are well aware of the situation and not one response. The Premier of Nevis, the leader of the opposition, and 2 others, nobody called him out. Even after this clip been playing for months now, nobody called him out. Nobody called him out.
The Prime Minister said that it was treasonous. He said it was borderline treasonous. He said it was borderline treasonous. He said, if any leader, if any Prime Minister does this, they should never be able to represent the country again. He said it was self above nation. You know what's the punishment for treason? So to hear that, because I heard Mr. Bentham when he first published that information and said that, yes, he signed off on most. So he's here indicting the ex-Prime Minister, not just ex-Prime Minister, because he went on to say, anybody that is caught doing this should be tried for treason. that it's self above country. He indicted himself wholly and solely while the opposition leader is there, all his colleagues are there. So I'm telling you, what we are watching is a theater. What we're watching is optics, and it's optics of the worst kind, because it's optics without substance. This is a government that it's bankrupt of ideas and bankrupt of money. You could see it. The unbelievable promises, the ridiculousness that they're posting on Facebook, the things that they're celebrating and applauding that are everyday run-of-the-mill government operations. It is almost sickening. I tell you, it's almost sickening.
So the problem we have here, gentlemen, is that there is nobody really in that parliament, whether on the opposition benches or the government side, that is willing to stand up for this country and the citizens.
The emperor's new clothes. The emperor's new clothes. Nobody wants to tell Dr. Drew that he's naked. And they're going to take us as little boys shouting from in the audience to say, you ain't got no clothes. And people think it's theatrics when you put it that way. I did a book report in third form of high school and just happened to Carly Morton was my English teacher, called Animal Farm. And again, every day, even when I studied in Cuba, I could see reenactments of that book every day. The archetypes of the mule, the labor rights that, irrespective of seeing what's going wrong, can think that they cannot exist outside of labor, that they cannot exist outside the imagination of Dr. Douglas, our labor leader. That is the kind of persons that we are trying to convince. That is the donkey on the farm. That is the typical archetype. And what happens to the donkey? He's sent and made into glue. Yeah. And that is why persons, because again, every party have studied the history of the PAM, Labour, and the PLP history is sharp, so you see playing out there. Where you have persons who are like that irrespective of the reality placed in front of them, the reality of social media and all those things reoccurring and those memories, and still will come and almost as if there's a selective amnesia, that people will come and tout Dr. Harris while all his indiscretions are still there, unanswered. And people are telling me that they're the new candidates and a new dispensation. No, guys, no.
No, we got a serious problem, gentlemen, and that is why I'm going to come here on a Wednesday evening, no matter how tired I am, to try and bring this information to the general public, because the wrong message has been sent. I have another clip here I'm going to drop, gentlemen. I don't know if you want to speak on anything as Brother Benta before I go to the next clip.
No, I think you guys have said it very well.
Okay. The next clip here, I basically, I thought, I have it for the past couple of weeks, but I thought of not playing it. But after what I experienced last week with this special economic zone that they're trying to create there for St. Kitts and Nevis, I said, man, these guys are really playing some games on the people, man. You know, they're playing Russian roulette on these people. Now, this clip I'm about to play is my good partner Timothy Harris making his contribution during the Parliament when they was trying to increase penalties for criminals. I want you to hear the clip, and I have my views, but I would prefer to hear your Dr. Alexander's view before I bring mine, because I don't want anybody to think I'm putting anything in your head. So let's play this clip.
We can't always want to lock up people. Can't always bring out the wickedness in us to see the suffering of other people for their life, for 40 years, for 30 years. What does that do to the society? Small, interconnected societies of victims on one hand, and those who are caught up in this web of crime. So I raise those issues, and they follow too in relation to the other bit of legislation. Because the answer is, put them away for life. That seems to be. It's not the right answer. And when persons begin to see and perceive the wickedness of the arm of the government in relation to them, they are going to find ways of ensuring that the wicked arm of the state does not come to them. And so it is not a good look. It's not a good look. It is good to attempt to do something, but what we are attempting to do must make sense, and it must be helpful, and it must be defensible. And I find this piece of legislation lacking. Madam Speaker, I would have to take a leave now but return, because there are other bits of legislation, including the judge alone trials, about which I want to add my voice to the debate.
Yeah, but Alexander, tap your screen, open your mic. I'm going to give you the first shot at this one.
It's hard to sum up, but what struck me the most was the wicked arm of the state, because it brought me right back to COVID. Because again, I'm going to say to people that for me, COVID was, like people talk about the Renaissance period in Europe, like all of our history start about that, the whole world and science, it almost like it revolves around that. But that was our Renaissance. That is when we went back to point zero, and that was every point when we talk about diversification, we were supposed to move. When we would talk about how we would approach our policies being more humane, that was the point. And I remember the Timothy Harris of that time. I can remember the archaic roads. I can remember JNF. I can remember being a doctor working on the front line. I said about the political parties, the civil service as it is, as we inherited it, eats people. It's like a mother that cannibalizes its young. You're the one that is the fuel of it, but they still eat you every day because they're going to put you in situations where you have less than and ask you to make excuses for the system. I've been a doctor where there's no medication, and I end up defending it when people get angry, defending the system, and tell people, if you can't afford, well, go private, learn to wait, and we'll be doing our best. But when I realized and got on a policy level and realized we are not doing our best, that we could do so much better, and still being asked to tell people those excuses, I couldn't. So to hear Timothy Harris say that, like I'm saying, I understood that two truths can exist. So government can be lenient and less policing and less punitive. But in a moment like that, he could come with a much more valid argument. And again, I've been a fan of Timothy Harris in the House. I've been a fan of Sean Richards, and even Congress. These are ministers who are in the appeal and go in there and hey, I'm going to sharpshoot, I'm going to press against this. So these are guys that I know when they're willed, when they want to, are some of the most prepared parliamentary reps when they go in there, because I've seen him and Congress go at it. And both can deliver and both can do the research, because most of our parliamentary reps do nothing. I'm shocked when I go and see the reports of when cabinet meets and what it actually speaks about. Again, I've had our friends and family involved in this administration. So the lot of unknowns that I have, the things that I did know before, the operations and the policies I didn't understand before, I now know them just through proximity and just to the position that they gave me and I gave back. Because again, instead of assuming these roles and positions and being more empathetic and more open and bringing the change that is needed, I see people just assume the roles of the pigs, assume the roles of the so-called white men, assume the role of oppressors. And the present administrators, including Timothy Harris, are very, very, very far and very, very removed from the common man. Not even the common man, the everyday man. They're very much removed. All our ministers live in state houses, have the privileges and perks of access to customs, to the police, to security. They don't pay our bills, so they're not feeling what we are feeling, and they're only in there 3 years. So how can they relate? So I've been in meetings where you're trying to convince them, no, it should, not the safety measures, but you should think in this order, you should empathize more, and they can't, and they were just there. So the tolerance that they had before, they no longer have. They have a different tolerance and for different things. So to hear Timothy speak like that, like, it's not surprising, but it still hurts.
Brother Bente, you want to have an input on that?
I just want to make sure that I'm hearing that the Prime Minister of the country is saying, let's circumvent what the law mandates for an act of crime pertaining to the category of crime, and let's go to another measure rather than incarceration. You go into a supermarket, you see a can of canned beef or a can of sardine. You meet a little girl in the street, you rip her clothes off, you rape her, break her virginity. What level are we talking about tolerance that we can go to that other level of ignoring the crime? The laws and the books were created by the judiciary based on legislature, based on parliament, to make sure this protect and make sure that these laws are enforced, and you don't need a police department. If it is in-kind labor, some people come to your house and they help you build your house, you call it in-kind labor. So if stealing from you at a certain level is an in-kind crime, then we're looking at turning a whole fraction of our government into tolerating the disobedience of the law. Because at the end of the day, if you foster it and says in-kind, and then we give you some sort of concession, which I know that you get them, some of these guys are paying them to say they're not committing crime. But the violation of the victim, the individuals who are violated based on their privacy, the individuals' homes, or even the death or demise of a life of someone who has loved ones, and that loved one come back behind and say, well, it is in kind, and take the other person's life. How do we measure as a government or even elected officials that we can dissect it to a suitable direction to say this is okay? And then later it's applied to only some. Only some. The well-to-do will never see, but those who don't have becomes those who suffer the penalty. It must be across the board. Mother Justice wears a blindfold. She can't see, and she holds a scale of balance in one hand where the scale is balanced. Nobody better than nobody. And so if I'm listening to what he's saying, it becomes a normal thing to say. It sounds good. It sounds good to who? If I am the victim, vengeance is mine. That's what happens on the street. And when you see a young man walk up to you and stick a gun in your face and say, well, this isn't personal. I have to buy milk. I got to buy Pampers for my child. The man who's on the other end of the gun, is it personal? It definitely is. So how do we now, for the individual who's violated, to hear later, oh, we can make sure that we in kind a service to this individual who committed the crime because it was in kind, in a thing that we as government divest, dilute, and we create something other than what the justice recognized. Then remove it from the books. Robbery, remove it from the books. Shoplifting, remove it from the books, and make it an in-kind charitable organization that says that you must report to another entity of the government because it was an in-kind crime. It doesn't work like that. And while you have prudent men and women that speaks at this level, it changes and taints the mind of our own young minds too. Because they say, well, you know, the PM said it's okay. Or Minister so it's fine. And then who becomes the victim? And the victim may be them themselves at one given time or the other. So we got to be careful on how we present the laws in abundance, so fluid, so eloquent, and so rich, and making right wrong when wrong is wrong. And that's where I'm at with that. If I heard what I heard correctly.
Yeah, Brother Bento, you definitely heard correctly. And both you and Dr. Garfield presented a good argument on the matter. And I am happy that I allow you guys to go first, because the first thing popped into my head when I heard the former Prime Minister, Timothy Harris, making that presentation. Let's mirror that with the same Prime Minister that gave 5,500 shares of files to build a prison project. That prison brought in, as the new Prime Minister says, upwards of 20 to 25,000 citizens to the country. So why invest over $900 million into a prison that only costing 40 million to build if the prison will not be used to take these bad actors off the street? And this is where it's at for me. When I listen to these guys speaking, I really want to know who they're speaking to, because the DJ does not understand that. I can't comprehend that you're going to spend that amount of money. Your mic is closed, Garfield. That you're going to spend.
They don't relate.
They don't relate. $40 million to build a prison that you don't want to use. But you went and put even more, 962,500 million to build a prison that you don't want to use. It just does not add up. But guess what? As you know, we're running on time, out of time as usual, but I got to drop this clip by this pastor because the pastor is doing the part, you know. Even if the churches are sleeping and some of the pastors are caught in the web, many of the churches and the civil society and them, I believe that they are compromised because what this government has done, what this prime minister has done, is basically put some of these folks on board in key positions, some people on multiple boards, while other people can't eat. This is why you find some of them out there telling you that you must stay quiet because they're benefiting. So let's hear from this pastor.
You know, I've said this so many times from this pulpit, and I want to emphasize it again. There are some real wicked people in St. Kitts, you know. Some real wicked people. And I'm not in any way making any jokes about this. This is very serious on the authority of God's word. There are some real wicked people in this country, you know. Have no human touch, no compassion. I'm not talking about you having a bad day and you make a decision because you're having a bad day. All of us go through that. And when people go through that, you always like to judge them on that one day and say, oh, the true colors came out. All the time when they're being nice to you, they're in the true colors. You rub them the wrong way, and all of a sudden the true colors come out. When you're talking about people having a bad day, everybody gets a bad day at some point in their life. And you're supposed to have a bad day. If you never have a bad day, something wrong with you. Even Jesus had a bad day. When they're going up to Jerusalem and Peter said, Lord, you're going back up to Jerusalem again? You see what he did to you? They asked him, Jesus said, get the hands behind me, Satan. Now, I always say that, Pastor Penny. If I were to tell somebody in this church, get the hands behind me, Satan. Oh, you know what they're going to say? They ain't coming back. But Jesus said to Peter, get the hands behind me, Satan. Get the hands behind me, Satan. No compassion, no feeling, no sensitivities. But God says, I know where you live. Many people have had to give up good things, run away from it, because of the wickedness. There are people, let me stay here a little bit, because the Spirit is speaking to me. There are people, I told you already, they have the whole bakery, but you can't have a bread. Somebody should help me here. They own the whole bakery, but you can't get one bread. As soon as you're going to get one bread, they're going to stop you. There were some people in this country, they own everything. As soon as you come up with an idea, they want a part of it too. They want a part of it, and because they control everything, you either get them a part or they crush you. That's wickedness. Why poor people shouldn't feed their families the same way? Why poor people can't elevate?
So, my good people, that's the pastor speaking about the bad-mindedness which we're getting from these corrupt politicians. But Brother Bent, I'm going to drop a clip here, and I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to whether do your closing first. I got to drop a couple of ads and get out of here because we are basically out of time. But this conversation, if you guys are available next week, have to be continued. I have several clips here to be played and to discuss because I have to try and understand whether or not our people are paying attention to what's really taking place. Now, just after a couple of months in office, the Prime Minister came and presented to us that he had identified funds for a new smart hospital over there by the Ross University. From what we know, that piece of land was cleaned on numerous occasions. I was hearing the rumors that that piece of land does not belong to government, it's private owned land, and the owner came forward and put a stop to it. But they tried to give us the information. I hear so many different explanations from the Prime Minister. Some of it is that they were testing, they were doing topography, they was testing the land, they were testing water, they were testing all kind of things. But of recent time, it appears as though that the rumors is correct, that the land belongs to a private owner, because I think they are trying to negotiate getting that piece of land. So this health city that was supposed to be created in 2023, we are now in 2025, and there is no sign of where this health city will start. But one thing I can say for sure is that they might break ground to give the impression that something a keep, because elections is around the corner, but that health city will not be built under this term, and the only term that this government will have. In addition to that, we hear about the 2,400 smart homes. We don't have enough time to touch that this evening. We will deal with that next week. I got some updates on that as well. So let's take a listen to this clip.
So I would say the government's position is that we want health tourism. The other matter is we are now going into building a new hospital, which is going to break ground very, very soon, within the next 2 weeks. We are going to create a health city. The health city will be where Ross University is. Ross University Vet School, then there is UMHS, you'll have the hospital, you'll have a research center, which I'll speak to because you asked about it, and then we will also have private medical centers to complement what we are going to construct there. And that medical city, we want to become an area where health tourism can also be pursued. And therefore, the concept of One Health, we want to build it out here. So you'll see that medical city being built in St. Kitts and Nevis, and it will start very soon. I'm talking about it will start in weeks. And again, that is because this is a progressive government. In less than 2 years, we are pursuing the construction of a more modern hospital that will offer good, improved services to our people and to those who come.
So, gentlemen, as I said, that was a smart city that was supposed to, health city, I must say. And I remember speaking to the Prime Minister about health tourism. I spoke about that to previous administration, and nothing come to fruition. The plan is as good as the execution is. You have to be able to execute a plan. If the DJ come to you with a plan and present a plan to you, you don't get rid of the DJ and try to do the plan on your own. It's not going to work. I spoke earlier about an idea that I gave to the DHI at the JNF to put the information both to the front to try control the traffic and the safety of the workers and everybody alike. If you go there today, you will see a little thing pushing a corner called a health booth. That does not fulfill what I presented. Okay. You cannot take someone's idea and make it your own. The individual that comes with the idea, there's a playbook to that idea. You got to allow that person to complete the process. So, Brother Alexander, at your convenience, go up to the JNF and you will see your new information booth. That is not what I presented. I presented something much better than that.
Mm-hmm. You want the thing is, and you heard me say this earlier about I've been practicing wherever I speak at the past. Even when I speak, I want to relate myself to it. And again, I said before that I'm intimately related to a lot of the persons that are involved right now and in the activity. So whereas before, when Timothy was there, when Dr. Harris was there as the Prime Minister, I still felt out of touch. Even though I was very much embedded in medicine, I still felt out of touch in terms of policy and about there's something different when your colleagues, Like for example, when we got together very early and when I spoke of Dr. Jew, you know, a lot of persons said you could have been involved, you could have already run in Central and all these things. And like they didn't understand that I was living vicariously through all the persons that were involved. I was able to say, hi, I could have done this. So it's not a matter that I needed to prove it to myself or anybody else. I was like, all right. But he got there because he was more focused on it and he was the better choice. The same for Mash, the same for lots of persons who were involved. I didn't see it as a lost opportunity. So again, I've been doing a deep dive. And I don't know if you've realized that even when I post things on Facebook, there's none of these neophytes, Commander, because it's been 15 years I've been posting on Facebook, despite the advice I've been getting that it's not professional, it's not doctors, because again, my mind has always been so full that I always have to put it somewhere. If I can't imply my plans, I could speak of them. So they're on Facebook. So a lot of the times that they're trying to do the spin bowling or manifest something that's not, it's very difficult to do that on my post or with me because I'm so grounded, not just in the Labour Party, but with Labour rights, because the Labour Party is nothing without the people. So even though I was a card carry member, I was so involved with a lot of the folks that were foundational in the Labour Party. And so much of the persons I saw as mentors, I was always affiliated with them. So Dr. Drew, I'm not surprised at what's going on in health, and I'm going to be obliteratingly honest, because in 2006, we got back in 2005, all of us, Dr. Drew was the last to incorporate. So I was with Dr. Wilkerson when he incorporated. So even my issues with Dr. Wilkerson afterwards, they were foundation in the fact that very early he said that I wasn't someone that he could just inculcate or who would be a fan. So coming in 2006, my daughter was born in 2006 and she was born in New York. So I wanted to go up to visit. So I bypassed, I was in the emergency room at that point. And my next rotation, because they initiated and invented a rotation program for us as doctors, because the community had misgivings, but that wasn't the issue. The community could always have misgivings of their children and of those who come back to lead. But it's when those who are well-to-do have and the executive members don't have faith, that's when it starts to impact us. So they didn't have faith and they needed us to prove ourselves and send us through the ringers. So they needed to do that. And even to this day, this is nearly 20 years later, they still don't have a program for the doctors coming from UEA anyways to be properly incorporated and to get familiarized. And it was incorporated then. So I left early. I asked Dr. Wilkerson for leave to go early, so I missed those two. So the rotations in terms of meeting with my other doctor colleagues, I didn't get that. But I'm now doing all the investigations, and you could ask any of the doctors that they rotated with us. One of the issues they had with our Dr. Jew was that he would not put a confirmed diagnosis on the paper.
Wow.
And I won't call the names because I think these men need to stand up and speak out, just like how I can speak out. But when you go and ask them what was their long-standing and overriding issue with him, and I see that because he has not impacted health in his time there. None of the doctors that have been our prime minister, so that's an indictment on all of them. But him in 2025, with all the promises made, has not moved the needle in health, an inch. There's a acting PS, again, a guy that came from Pikipiali, somebody that was like a mentor to me growing up as well, to see somebody that came from nothing and made something of themselves now. And we see people who just joined the choir. And the semantics and the optics. And again, I always ask myself, God, that is my one true fear in the whole of St. Kitts right now. What would happen to me if I'm not well? And for what all I've sacrificed and the things I've done for health, I shouldn't be in a predicament where I'm sure what would happen to me in our health institutions, because I know everybody there is very able-bodied and very able-minded. It's just the facility and the systems that I put there. So to see people doing this theatrical dance as if it has improved or it's in its glory days, it leaves more than a bad taste in my mouth. Because again, I know these persons are fearful. And there could be so much things I could say about this and that I won't. Because again, who will be punished won't be the ones that need to be punished. So for all the other fears that people are talking about, the only fear I have is our health systems. And health systems and education systems are always the one that are sacrificed whenever a government does not have money or whenever a government is prioritizing other areas. Because government cannot be bankrupt. A government bank is the same private banks that you have. Government doesn't pull money or invent money. We don't have a central bank like the US that we just make money and just solve problems on future. And even America is betting on their future when they just print money. So I want us to understand the labor rights and all the persons that want to dance in this unreality. Understand that your life is at stake when we continue to wait for what is coming. It's coming soon. You deserve a healthcare system that is prioritized. I won't even get into the nitty-gritty of what should be the details. That is prioritized. You deserve a St. Kitts Nevis where water is prioritized, where it's more than a department, where you don't just have an engineer running around making excuses, where you have a 45 water ministry, where people understand water impacts all aspects of life, agriculture, tourism. There's no way it doesn't touch. So when you have it in a department where you have a set of plumbers and people just digging up the road and people have no respect for the men that work hard and ensure your supply of water, all these things are awful. And I can say this just before I end, that I know, we saw the list, I know my government and my ministers from 80 to now understand management. Because you see it when it's a brand new entity, like Kittish Hill, when everybody wants to work there, when it's prioritized, when all the money is going to, you see it when it's a Marriott, when the Marriott was being built, everything was prioritized to ensure that the Marriott would be built. The Hyatt, the same. Why we don't have the same level of prioritization for our schools and hospitals? When we're voting in the persons that make these decisions, when the policy is written by Kittitians who will suffer in these same institutions. So again, there's a disparity and an unreality, not just in our leadership, in the persons that accept this every day, when the persons can get up and, because I see Dr. Drew's post, the amount of likes and better on the labor. And these are the same shows, better on the PLP, better on the PAM. And the people who are saying these things are suffering, because a young man met me in Inland Revenue was trying to chastise me and asking me why I've left the Labour Party. And I had to remind that young man, the group has never protected me. I have always protected the group. I had to remind that young man how long I've set as an example for him. And at the end of it all, you know what I asked a young man that was trying to convince me I'd somehow turn me back at the party and they're the only option? I asked him, are you okay? Are you being taken care of? He then says to me, now I'm going to need your help and I'm going to need you to reach out to somebody. I won't even call the names. To reach out to somebody and ensure that such and such is done. So such is the level of trauma our people are going through, that people will meet you and chastise you. People are chastising me about my hair. And the brain inside my head, the brilliance of it, days can't compare. People, like today, I don't have my joint because I wanted to prove a point, because there are persons who are saying, I love everything he's saying, but why he and Marisha with a big joint in his mouth? Because that is the level of superficiality our people live in, where the message isn't important, it's what the messenger is doing. Despite the messengers before coming and lying to them, and blatantly lying to them now, they don't call out those persons. They want to call me about my hair, how I'm dressing, the fact that I close my private office. So for everybody's worrying, until we get rid of this government, I don't wish to practice my trade, because that is always there. It's always up here. I cannot function in this environment. Not where I see people I love, people who supposedly love and say country above self, are totally egocentric, are totally obsessed with things that don't benefit us. Yeah, it's difficult and almost impossible to survive or thrive in an environment like that.
Brother Alexander, to be honest with you, it's painful for me to hear what you are saying, but it's the reality. The reality is what it is. What you are saying is reality. Because for me personally, when I was asked to come down to St. Kitts and contribute to the healthcare system, my first response would have been yes, because I want to do the best I can for my country. But I said no a couple of times, because I know the attitude of our people. Oh, he campaign and vote for Labour, so he wants something. I didn't want anything. Your mic is closed.
No,
But
I didn't want to interrupt, but it's just the stereotypes. You get a big job. They don't question if you're qualified or what you're willing to contribute and can contribute. You get a big job, a
correct.
big right.
You know, and the funny thing is, after putting in 20 plus almost 30 years in the healthcare system in North America, I am happy that I was given the opportunity to assess the healthcare situation in the Federation for myself. Because now I can speak from knowledge. I can say what's possible and what's not. And like I said to the Prime Minister, it is not that hard. Many of the things that they're making a big deal about is not hard. Such as the ambulances, like I said before, that we use in St. Kitts Nevis. You don't have to go to Dubai or no place to get an ambulance. You got all ambulance in the Federation. There are minibuses in the various vehicle suppliers there, car dealers. You can outfit them. You can make them even better than what you will get from overseas if you know how to apply them. I know how to apply them. I know there are people in St. Kitts that I can work with to come up with a couple of ambulances that will be good for the country and whatever because of what we use them for. Now, it's unfortunate that I was not given the opportunity to finish the projects that I started because I'm not losing anything. The country is, the people is. As you rightfully said, I am concerned that I'm in St. Kitts and something should happen to me. I get into an accident or whatever, and my life is cut short because of the services at the main hospital that we have there. So that is my concern. So running out of St. Kitts every now and then to make sure I check up on myself and do whatever personal stuff I have to do. The average boy and girl, men and women in St. Kitts Nevis does not have that luxury. So I feel that pain for them. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes when I speak, tears come to my eyes for these people. Because I know they don't have a choice. These ministers of government has a choice. Their families have a choice. The people that get in the big paycheck, they have a choice. And they brag about it. So for our little boys and girls, the newborns and stuff like that in the Federation, I mean, many of us are going to have to carry that whip to continue trying to educate. And it's not that the people are not educated, you know. The people are seeing things, but they don't realize that they have the power in their hands to make that difference. Not these politicians. For whatever reason, Dr. Joe went down the wrong road. I do not know. And I would have really loved to know exactly what took him from that road where I met him in 2021 during the campaign of 22. And even after I started working at the JNF, our various meetings, what take him from that road? Because for a doctor, for a prime minister, minister of health, who don't show any compassion, the people at the JNF, they complain to me that he promised them all kind of things during the campaign, and since he became prime minister, nothing. These are things. I'm going to tell you something about Alexander. There's a lot of things I have in my head that I have not really said publicly because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. But I get some good cuss off for Dr. Drew in St. Paul's, some serious cuss off from the young men and women in St. Paul's. And I've spoken to him about it. And I said to him, you know, you don't need to come with money to buy nobody a drink. Just come to the village, talk to the guys for a couple of minutes. I don't mind paying for the drink. Have a piece of barbecue chicken for my boy, Papi, at the Bang On bar. Just come and show the people that you are the prime minister. Go across to Nevis, do a little town hall meeting, let the people know that you are the prime minister for all. All of these things is yes, great idea. And the first time the prime minister promised me he's going to come to St. Paul's to meet with the guys is around the same time Mick Stoke passed away. And he had a good excuse. He told me he could not make it to the to St. Paul's because his father had passed away. And I accepted that. There was another time he said that the governor, which was the previous governor general, not this one, had put something on his agenda for something with CARICOM, which he wasn't aware of. So on those two occasions, I accepted that he had other things to do. And I said to him, you know, the guys are cussing me and whatever. He said, DJ, don't worry about it, man. I'm going to come. I'm going to check you guys, whatever, whatever. But the prime minister don't even realize that one afternoon he passed through St. Paul's. I was down by the same bar. I do not know whether he was coming from Arthur's over there, Kitchen Hill, which he goes regular, and past St. Paul Street. But when the prime minister passed down going towards Sandy Point, our eyes met. And quickly he turned his head the opposite direction. That was the first sign for me to know that this man is not genuine. But for whatever reason, I continue to give him the benefit of the doubt. And today, we know what we have. A prime minister that does not care about his people, that have no interests for whatever reason in the campaign that he campaigned on and the promise to the citizens. So, folks, we got a bit of overtime already. I'm getting out of here in a bit. I want to drop a few ads. I want to give Brother Benter and Brother Alexander their closing. So, guys, I don't know if you want me to drop the ad and then you do your closing or vice versa.
We'll go first.
Okay.
Mr. Bento, I'm gonna take lead after Mr. Bento.
Okay. So, Brother Bento, your closing.
Sure. I mean, I listened, and I definitely want to get into the medical city, because if they discuss that they start clearing property, you don't have data. If you have the structure set in St. Kitts for people flying into St. Kitts for medical services by specialists in your country, how do you harness that? And then you got to look whether you have your own triage trauma center, and it would come up with that in a medical city, which, as you know, we talk about a smart city. You need a fiber optic for immediate, real lifetime communication, video and verbal. Because at the same time you're communicating, because you're partnered with many other facilities, that there are over 5 or 6 doctors in that operating room with you at the same time performing a service. So to jump into speaking about a medical city when you don't understand the connotation of what's required. As a senator, I was a chairman of Health, Hospital, and Human Services. And it became a thing that even the Virgin Islands is prepared to have such stature in such a medical delivery, because we're not there. Are you there? How many of what you call uncompensated care, as far as the individual who doesn't have insurance to pay for the medical service in your country? You need the data, and it comes with much more than just talking it, or even saying you're clearing property and where's diesel, because you can't start to build a building without a plan for the infrastructure necessities with input from other physicians, specialists, IT, that they could come in and say, well, this is what we're going to need before you start to build. We're going to break down the building to fit this trunkage into the building. You got to know what you're doing before you start. So when I hear foolishness like this, it just takes me out of category to listen, because I'm listening to ministers. We listen to people who sit in a position of leadership, individuals who are not there because the people believe that they're there to learn, you're there to serve, because the people expect that you have a little inclination of what you're saying and what you're doing. You've lost the foundation when you speak hypothetically, because this is a hypothetical discussion. A medical city doesn't come with just words. And then where are you going to get the other part? Because now you're 53,000 in population. What's your traffic? What is going to be your traffic? How do you compete with Trinidad? How do you compete with Puerto Rico or Florida? What will be your traffic? What will be your niche that will draw somebody to your shore to spend money in your home, where there's other specialists that's all over the different places in this world? How do you compete in that market? So you got to develop a product. And what is the product? The product hasn't been identified. A medical city is not a product. What is your product? To bring them to you, to get that service first and foremost. But I want to thank you again, DJ Marisha and Dr. Alexander. I really appreciate every time you're on, because I tell you, it's very spiritual for me to listen, because I myself, when I speak with you guys, I am collecting data, right? Because in fact, in being from one side of the spectrum, there's no perfect man. right? But there is men with wisdom who are never too old or too smart to listen to even a 6-year-old with an idea. And I thank you guys so much for having me on with you this afternoon.
Okay, stand by there, Brother Alexander. Since Mr. Benter went down the road of the medical facility, I'm going to drop a clip here where during the campaign, the Prime Minister promised that if elected and they won, he will make sure he got into the treasury and supply whatever finance needed for anyone that need medical care overseas. No more sponsor sheets and all this stuff. Of late, I am getting all of these requests. My boy Banky there, Nevis, sent me something there over the weekend. A friend of his needs some eye care, and he has a GoFundMe that he's trying to assist the gentleman there. Friends and family on the other side who are willing to assist and whatever. So I'm going to drop this clip, Mr. Benter. Basically, that Mr. Banky could reach out to the Prime Minister because he made that commitment during the campaign to spend our tax dollars on the citizens. So Banky, this one is for you.
But I want to say tonight that under St. Kitts Nevis government, led by myself as the Prime Minister, supported by my team, we will introduce universal health care for everybody here in St. Kitts and Nevis. All of you, you deserve it and you will get it. That is what the $1.5 billion was for. So they don't walk around with any sponsorship. But I want to take it further and to say to all of those who are walking with sponsorship that is the second day you elect me as Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, I will take the money out of the treasury and send you overseas to get the treatment that you deserve.
So back to you, Brother Benter, and then Brother.
You know, it's a crime and literal illiteracy, and it is in fact a disaster. When you speak out of turn, you spoke or they spoke as they present to their own people and has not delivered that segment. Where is the $1.5 billion? And then it goes into the other categories of what is it that we are talking about when we speak in this light? For just a vote? So those individuals who have expired in the cemetery, and for those individuals who go funds, of those individuals who have a friend somewhere else that sends funds for them to travel out, where did we go wrong? You know, honesty becomes one of those things when you don't know, you leave it alone for the subject matter expert. You don't put yourself in a category for a vote because you become a Machiavellian person. You become a demagogue. And that takes it into another state of mind with people when that's happening. The trust is broken. The seals of all that was consecrated in trust is gone because you've violated the very fabric, number one fabric for many people. Food and essentials are for sure. But healthcare, it is a wisdom's ability, it's a wise man's ability. It is wisdom in this fabric of knowledge first before you speak. Because at the end of the day, when somebody comes at your door and you can't provide a service, you said you would deliver. Any alternative other than what you have here to go elsewhere for it, and you're not doing that, that is definitely a demagogue under a Machiavellian behavior.
Brother Alexander, your mic is closed.
Yeah, to take a while to recover from Dr. Bento's presentation. Yeah. As he delivers with passion, but he's so acute at certain times. And today he was in top form. Because it's Machiavellian, and we grew up in the era where we feel like these philosophers, these Greek and Latin philosophers, that a lot of what they taught is even more regarded than the Bible. Because if you do a Google search for Machiavelli, the way he's talked about, you think that, yeah, that he is the greatest thing that ever happened to politics and leadership. But when you look at his environment at the time when he wrote this great book that's quoted so many times, where he's uttered about, he was in jail and he was trying to find a way of how I could convince the political elite and the economic elite of Italy at that time, how they would take him out of prison and make him a part of the government to show them how to lead and how to influence other people. So we're operating within the paradigm, within the imagination of a white man
in medieval Europe. Even when we look at the rules that we're governed by, it's still that way. But I'm going to get back to health systems. Because remember, I studied in Cuba 7 years to come back and impact my health system, along with the gentleman that is now in charge. I worked for quite a while before he was even prime minister on raising the standard, because we were about to build an urgent care center. He, myself, and Dr. Whitley, that was our plan, and that was our plan because I had a surgery, an incident on my foot, and if it were not for Dr. Woodley, I would have never been seen that very same day in theater. I would have never been able to leave after surgery that I was supposed to stay on the private ward and do it ambulatory. And because of my relationships with the nurses at Mary Charles, I could do that. All the services that should have been in-house, ambulatory, because all the nurses say, yeah, we're going to make sure that he's okay. We're going to nurse him back to health. And I got back from December around the eve of Christmas. By February the 1st, I was back on my feet because of the care afforded to me. And what was afforded to me was just, I don't even know how to frame it. It was the norm, but I was only elevated to the norm because of my relationships with my nurses. The fact that I had a history and a hospital and lived close to the hospital and being the lead doctor at the hospital. I was only able to get those access points because of my long-standing relationships and networks. So even then we had that conversation, Dr. William and myself, and I said, Dr. Willie, if you want not just the surgeon, but the surgeon who had already battled against Dr. Wilkinson and established yourself in an authority in the hospital, I wouldn't be being able to afford this level of care, and this level of care is not extraordinary. And then we started working. He became the prime minister, and at that point we said, we're not going to stop planning. We're not doing urgent care, but any government that comes in, any administration that wins, healthcare will not be the same. We will be prepared to already enact the policy and find out what are the issues, to present the issues with data. And that's what we did. So we met with Dr. Drew as soon as he got in. And I have pictures. I posted pictures on the internet. And every person that was involved in that little team was Cuban trained. Every person was involved in that was Cuban trained. So he was with this leaning. And you read that document. At the core of that document was human resource. Not just how we treat all the workers at the hospital, but primarily nurses who are carrying the heaviest brunt of that work is not the doctors. I'm a doctor. I've worked in JNF and I've worked in the medical system here in St. Kitts. We are just supporting actors. We're the stars because we're made the stars, but the nurses are who establish the care program and carry it out each day. And any mistakes are made, they're the ones blamed for it, even if we're the ones. So I'm being as honest and as brutal with you as possible. So when we made that plan, I was chosen to be PS of Health, and I, just like you, refused it. Told them, no, I'm a cannabis lover. And the two can go hand in hand because our people are not ready for somebody that's going to be as open as me and think that I can still write policy, because people feel policymakers must be highfalutin, must maintain this unrealistic standard. And I'm telling you, I'm not for that. Because I'd already worked on that document and they were so impressed by that they wanted me to be the PS of Health. I was rejected from that position because my girlfriend at the time was the head of government. That was his personal decision. I've seen that same decision made ever so often when it's no longer a conflict of interest anymore. So I've lived it. So when I hear you say that this present administration is not in love with healthcare, does not prioritize healthcare, I feel it, see it, and I've lived it. So when Mr. Bento, just by hearing the words cluttered, could find it so distasteful, and even with his experience as a policymaker, understood that nothing there that's being said can be correlated to reality. In one simple sentence, he was able to say, no, nothing there is making sense. Nothing there can be patented by reality.
So again, why are our leaders, why are our brightest and our most powerful lying to us blatantly? Why are they taking us for fools? We must ask ourselves this, because for it to happen, we have to allow it. And we are too allowing as a people.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation, gentlemen. Sorry for that interruption. My baby girl just came to give Daddy a little hug to let me know she's leaving. So I got to give her that love. Brother Alexander, the honest truth is, and the funny thing is that at the end of the day, I want to see our healthcare system in St. Kitts Nevis improve. And the folks that are in the position currently, I really don't think that they understand it. Like you said, the nurses carry a great deal of weight. The workers in general, but the nurses carry a great deal of weight at the JNF. And they got very passionate, lovely, kind. You think about it, very nice people. And I tried to explain to a couple of people in the civil service, in the management structure, and I tried to break it down to them, is that I realized that a lot of credit are given to doctors in St. Kitts and Nevis. In my training here in New York and throughout the US when I travel to train, because I think I have said it enough that I travel around the country doing hazmat, health and safety and different trainings. And the doctors, when you call a doctor is when it's too late, when you're looking to be healed,
right,
or to be attended to.
That's right.
People such as myself, we are preventative. We stop you from getting there. And that is why in the US system, people such as myself get so much credit and high rate for the work that we do. In St. Kitts Nevis is in the reverse. And it's unfortunate because those nurses, you mentioned Dr. Woodley, I do not know if you can recall, I was about to play my ads, but I do not know if you can recall during the former administration when the saga was taking place with Dr. Woodley being locked out from the operating theater. And I got the news, I reached out to her, and I was supposed to have a chat on this platform with you and herself about the situation. We were having some technical difficulties that evening, so that chat never took place. But I happened to meet Dr. Woodley now while working at the JNF and even in different settings. And you can't find a better person, a kinder doctor. She have a heart of gold. So
she will be the Prime Minister.
That would be good. That would have been good. I believe we would have got a better service out of Dr. Woodley.
But again, we as a nation and we as leaders, we weren't ready. We're not women. We're ready to really empower women, and that is the core of a lot of the issues in St. Kitts.
You know something, guys? I was speaking to you guys this afternoon. I would say this to DJ Marisha for sure and Dr. Garfield. I would say this and make this commitment to the people of your country, and you can fact check whatever it is. I am prepared when you guys become ministers of this government, because you have that love, you have that tendon to understand compassion, to bring individuals into St. Kitts. They will train by going to a university, create a curriculum at your university for medical clinicians, train there in St. Kitts. They will also, for those who want to go on to become specialists, take them to LSU, Louisiana State University. They will build the centers at no cost to the government, but it would require that those individuals that are trained, that they must come back and serve in that institution at least 5 years of service. The education side of it, at no charge to the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis who want to get into medical clinician, with every level of medical clinicians. This is my promise to you guys once you guys become ministers of this government. Dr. Corey Hebert, put his name on this so they go research his name. And then when they research his name, they see me right next to him and see what it is that they've had in place moving to the Caribbean. And that is what DJ Marisha brought me to St. Kitts about as well, with a smart city. But it didn't get there. It became that I tried to extort money from the Prime Minister. I never seen much stupidness in my life. But these individuals, the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, the Emory Clinic, all combined, that's what I talk about, the technology with the fiber optic that's necessary. This will come to St. Kitts. And Mr. Marisha, they had a little brief discussion with him. He saw a little video of what he was offering. And it's real. They have done it in other places. They've done some in Antigua. They've done other places at no cost, though. This would be one of those role model projects for a developing country that I ate sugarcane from, where there was nothing around for miles but sugarcane, to know what can be developed within a developing country. That's what we talk about development. What do you move? That's what we talk about niches. What is your niche to bring a product? You have to have that inclination of vision and understanding before you open your mouth. So my promise to you guys is this. I'll have Dr. Corey Hebert on with us. He will say it himself. He's a chief medical practitioner in Louisiana. He is the state's recognized physician when it comes to disasters, and he's what they call epidemiology. He's this person that brings all of that together for a development. And I thank you again. I am so moved by you guys tonight, I tell you. I'm so moved by this new development of this party that you guys are now moving forward. I am moved that there is a future and a vision going forward when it comes to you, DJ Marisha, because I've listened to you. I am even moved even more so by Dr. Alexander, by your input, because this is one of the things doctors don't do. They worry about Dr. Benjamin Franklin and whatever the $100 bill is their currency, but they don't worry about the human part of it, as far as the service and what you deliver to the people who needs the right product to survive. See, you could be medicated for the rest of your life. That's business. But healing, right? A lot of doctors don't think that way. Healing means you don't have to go back to take a pill, but they don't want to heal. They make more money on the continuum care of continued medication. But you guys are talking about healing. You guys are healers and mean well for your country. I'm telling you, I'm here and I'm texting at the same time, and Dr. Hebert is listening, but we're speaking at the same time to what we're saying here, because he needed to hear this. Somebody else said need to hear this. Dr. Corey Hebert out of Louisiana. When Louisiana had the hurricane where so many devastation took place, Corey Hebert, a Black physician, and his team moves collectively, and they got cares done for people in Louisiana, built the hospitals where people were dying in the stadium, and the doctors are issuing morphine, things just to 12 individuals are quiet them down while they die. That's what was going on after the storm, Katrina. That's what was going on. And these individuals rise for the occasion, and they have moved a network where they have funding all over the world, and they're making sure that people within our community, as far as, because Louisiana were predominantly Black individuals who are dying, living in feces and so forth in the stadium after the hurricane. The hospital was dead because the generator was underneath ground. The whole place got flooded. What went one time? Power. And there goes the generator. Nothing can be done. And while the storm is going on, and people who needs the red plugs, oxygen, that's gone. Death became the imminent or the eventual factor of many lives where it was unnecessary. We're going to do it right. You're going to do it right. You have the capability, the wherewithal to get it done. You have the love and the interest for your people. And I promise you, people are saying, St. Kitts and Nevis, with your members, as members of ministry of this government, that these individuals will come to your shores. And I promise, as God is my creator, and I don't tell lies, I don't make mistakes, just like I did in the Virgin Islands, it is yours now as well. And imparting the continuum of life for our people. And growth and development is what we are about. And if we don't work in unison and collaboration, then we're working in it as a divide. We have to learn to work between that divide. And I thank you again, guys.
Thank you, guys. At this time, let me drop these ads and try to get out of here. I want to big up my guys there, Brother Powell, the man Scatter. They're the Island Purified Water, Main Street, Newton Ground, St. Kitts. The best water people there in St. Kitts. I want to thank them for keeping the DJ hydrated when he's in the beloved Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. But in the meantime, let's take a quick run across to our sister island Nevis and say good evening to the good folks there at Carbos.
Carbos, located at Fountain Village in Nevis, is the go-to spot for your Saturday treats. Tantalize your taste buds with his delectable Carbos Delicacy Goat Water. Or, if you prefer some soul food, then Carbos Punji and Fish is definitely the way to go. Call ahead and reserve at 869-663 9694. Then make your way over to Cabos and enjoy the vibrant atmosphere while you savor your delicacy. Cabos, we are not changing, we are only improving.
Food all over, food all over. You got the food all over.
Yeah, you heard it right. Brother Carbo has the food all over Nevis there and is ready to serve you in St. Kitts as well. So feel free to reach out to Brother Carbo, let him know DJ Mauricio sent you. Now let's take a quick listen to what Sister Carmen have to say to us this evening.
Girl Sandra, you know where you can find nice fresh local food 7 days a week, one provision and all kind of thing. Girl, where? Right down there by Shellings, by Carmen Catering Services. Girl, she opposite the bus stop. Girl, and she also cater for weddings, parties, anything you want to cater for, funeral and all. Girl, and trust me, you're gonna enjoy the food. And she also selling bites and Sundays. Opposite the car shop, right down the main road. Girl, you could call 665-1494 or 663-6005 to order your food or go and pick up your food. Girl, the food will be finger licking and you get your money worth. You ain't want nothing better than that.
You're correct. You don't want nothing better than that. Don't forget that Sister Carmen is right there on a Sunday afternoon from midday until about 5, right there in the bus stop in Boyd's Village. Just let her know DJ Mauricio sent you. Now let's hear what my boy, Brother Malvern Gums of the Spectrum Band in St. Thomas have to say about the DJ.
Hey, this is Malvern from Spectrum Band, and you're listening to DJ Mauricio, playing you the best in Caribbean music.
You got that?
Hey, this is Malvern from Spectrum Band, and you're locked into DJ Mauricio. Keep it locked.
Right there. My good people, just before we get out of here, I just want to give some quick update about my boy there, Brother Jordan, having some event here in the New York area this coming Labor Day. So next Friday, August 29th, you can check out Brother Jordan Labor Day weekend lineup. Gonna be having Small Axe Band amongst some other good people like the Heart Attack Band, Rep Your Flag and stuff over there at 1010 East to 28th Street in the Bronx. That's from 8 p.m. on next Friday. That's the 29th of August. Labor Day weekend lineup. You check Small Axe Band, Upfront Band, DJ Fire, Evolution Sound International. That's there 1010 East to 28th Street, Bronx, New York. And on the 31st, actually, it's going to be Rep Your Flag, Small Axe Band, Heart Attack International. And that's going to be over there at 3061 Bainbridge Avenue, Bronx, New York, 10457. Yes, that's Sunday 31st is going to be the Small Axe Band, Heart Attack International, Upfront Band, Hellfire International, and DJ Fire. And then basically that will be the lineup there for Brother Jordan's promotion there next weekend. Hopefully he can drop an ad for me to drop that for you next week, Wednesday. But that's Jordan event there for next week, next weekend's Labor Day Fair here in the Boogie Down Bronx. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find a number here for Brother Jordan so that if you have any question for Brother Jordan, you can give him a call. Jordan is a guy that is very hard to find, you know. So when you catch up with him, you just let him know that DJ Mauricio should give you his number. So you leave a message and let him know that he need to return the calls when people call him. So Jordan number is 347-443-3515. That's 347-443-3515. 347-443-3515. That's Brother Jordan. Let him know DJ Mauricio sent you. Brother Benta, I'm going to drop the unofficial anthem of our beloved Federation of St. Kitts Nevis right about now. This one is by the late great King Arrow. This one is called Arise, my good people of St. Kitts Nevis. It's love every time. Look forward to seeing you around next Wednesday, same place, same time, as we keep the information coming to our beloved citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. This one is called Arise by the late great King Arrow.
Your country dying and never lend a helping hand. Would you see your children's future dwindling, creating much disillusion? Or would we watch on idly, disregarding our self-sufficiency? Building a brand new nation, we'll move on together hand in hand. Rise, citizens, arise. The country is yours, all yours, still yours. Building a wall so massive or a bridge, don't care how small, as one tends to divide our people, the other unite us all. Unambitious men just cannot be a part of this community. Displaying selfishness, a total lack of interest. No, I said no, not at all. Citizens, let's unite and stand up for rights, all our lives and our lives. Let us reintegrate and correct our mistakes. Reunification, building a brand new nation. We move on together hand in hand. Rise, citizens, arise. The country is yours, all yours, still yours. correct all mistakes. Reunification, building a brand new nation. We'll move on together hand in hand. So rise, citizens, arise. The country is yours, all yours, still yours.
Yes, my good people, and that brings us to yet the end of another successful broadcast here on a Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday, August 20, 2025. Until such time, my good people,